Good evening. Councilmember Shane McFarland has our prayer and pledge this evening. Mr. McFarland.
If you'll bow your heads. Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we get to come together. And Lord, we ask that the decisions that we make here are made with diligence and with thoughtfulness. Lord, we specifically ask tonight that you lift up the Scales family, and the celebration of her life that took place on Saturday was just an epitome of a life that was lived well, and like it says in Corinthians that that she ran the way and that she got the prize. And we thank you for what that family has done in this community, and just pray that you give them your comfort in this time that they are mourning her loss. We thank you for what you're doing for us, and we thank you for how you're moving in this city. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to Murfreesboro City Council, October 17th, 2013. And thank you, Mr. McFarland, for those sentiments. I'm sure we all share those. And Ms. Harris, we are so pleased to see you, and we're saddened by the loss in your family. But we certainly celebrate a life, as Mr. McFarland said, well lived. And we know you will carry on as you have been, being a very solid and straightforward member of our council, and you will carry on the family tradition. That's a big load to carry, but you are certainly capable of doing that, and we share your sadness. Frankly, I think all of us, looking back on your mother's life and certainly on your dad's life, appreciate their contribution to our community, bringing us together to work together to make us all be better, to cooperate with one another, to learn to live with one another, and to learn to love one another. So I want to say thank you. I have a proclamation that I would like to read, and I'll give you a little chance to talk, and I know you may want to because the community has been blessed by your family. But we presented a proclamation at your mother's service, and I wanted to read that, if I might, and be sure and spread that over the minutes of this meeting tonight. Whereas Mary Carruthers Scales was devoted to her community as a member of the Murfreesboro City Council and the Murfreesboro City School Board, and her friends and family, including her late husband, former Murfreesboro City Council member and Vice Mayor Robert T. Nanny Scales, and current Murfreesboro City Council member Madeline Scales Harris. And whereas she taught middle school math at Bradley and Bellwood schools, she worked in the administration of all city schools and was the first African-American faculty member at MTSU, where she taught in the education department and served as associate dean in continuing education, and worked tirelessly as a math specialist for the State of Tennessee Department of Education. And whereas Mary Scales was inducted into the Tennessee Teachers Hall of Fame at Middle Tennessee State University in 2001 for her years of service to the children of Murfreesboro, and she was part of the first and only couple to have a city school named after her in 2005. And whereas she was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, she was owner of Scales & Sons Funeral Home and had 6 children, 15 grandchildren, 17 grandchildren, and whereas she taught life's lessons in regard to helping people, loving God, and realizing it's not always about you, she led the way for the community by breaking barriers, shattering glass ceilings, and communicating in kindness. Now, therefore, I, Tommy Bragg, Mayor of the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on behalf of our entire City Council, do hereby proclaim that this day is a day to honor Mary Carruthers Scales and urge all our citizens to join in honoring her as a great local humanitarian who cared deeply about her entire community and especially those in need. Signed, Tommy Bragg, Mayor of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, October the 12th, 2013. Madeline.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and the members of the council and members of the public. She fought a good fight, and she fought to the end, but her little body just gave out, and I'm honored to be sitting in the seat that she sat in the position she sat, and my mother and my father, and if it's God's will, I'm going to continue to carry on the legacy of helping people, because we serve God by serving our fellow man. And one of the last words she said to me was, continue to serve the people of Murfreesboro. And I intend to do that, and I thank each and every one of you.
Thank you. You've been a blessing, and your family has also, and we appreciate
Thank you, Mayor.
your continued service. Other council members may have something to add. If you do, now would be a good time.
Well, let me step up. Madeline knows that her mother and I had conversations on Sunday night. She stayed up real late, and she's a blessing, and we all gonna miss her. And she was a blessing, a great lady. Gave me a lot of confidence, gave me a lot of advice, and we didn't really talk about city business, just talk about life. Just talk about what you need to do and just carry on. So Madeline knows how we try to get in contact with her and stay with her. So it's just tough.
Madeline, I know we've all lost a friend, and you've lost your best friend. And our prayers are with you. And we will continue to stay in contact as we have up until this point. And, if there's anything that the council can do, we're always a phone call away, and we'll come around it. So thank you, and thank you for what your mom did for our community.
Madeline, the only thing I your mom would always come up to my mom anytime she'd see her, and didn't even really know her that well, but they would always hug, and Mom would always talk about Miss Scales. But the thing that really impressed upon me, and I'm saying this to the residents that we went to the memorial service for on Saturday, and you always see in the movies that people say that they want it to be a celebration. It was a celebration. From Vincent Windrow to Reverend McCarroll to every single person that spoke. It was, I never looked at my watch, and we were there 3.5 hours, and it was a testament to what she has done to Murfreesboro and all the community. So it was a blessing.
Thank you, council members. We ready to carry on, Mayor?
All right. Seems anticlimactic to have a council agenda after going through that, but it's time to move on to business, I think, at this time. You have your consent agenda before you. I would mention that on item C, the youth engagement manual, there'd probably be a few changes made that are not in the packet tonight to that, and if you had some questions and wanted that particular item pulled out, we could do that, but it would not substantially change that youth engagement manual, but there'll probably be a few changes made over and above what are in there tonight. So if you are willing to accept the consent agenda with that item C, knowing that there might be some changes there, I would ask you to consider your consent agenda at this time. Are there any questions regarding any of the items there? And if not, is there a motion that we accept the consent agenda as it has been presented?
I would move that we accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Sullivan and Mr. Young. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. You also have the minutes of the September 26, 2013 regular meeting, as well as the October 3rd, 2013 regular meeting. If you've had an opportunity to review those minutes as they are presented, are there any changes that need to be made? And if not, is there a motion that we accept those minutes as they are presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilly. Mr. Young, please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We have a number of items on third readings tonight. We'll consider for passage on third and final reading, an ordinance rezoning an area located along Oval Hessen Lane to residential zero lot line RZ district.
Move for passage on third reading.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Young, Mr. Washington, please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We'll now consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to rezone an area located north of Salem Highway at Kinsale to a planned residential development, PRD district.
Move for passage on third reading. Second.
A motion and second. Mr. Young, Mr. Gilly, please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We'll consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to annex an area located along Elam Road and adopt for the same a plan of services.
Move for passage on third reading.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Washington, please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We'll now consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to zone an area located along Elam Road to single-family residential 8, RS8 district.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilly. Mr. Young, please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We'll consider now for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to annex an area located south of John Bragg Highway and adopt for the same a plan of services.
Move for passage.
Second.
A motion and second. Mr. Washington, Mr. Young, please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Well, aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We'll consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance zoning an area located along John Bragg Highway to a highway commercial CH district and residential multifamily RM16 district simultaneous with annexation.
Move for passage.
Second.
Motion and second. Mr. Washington and Mr. Gilly, please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. We'll consider for passage now on third and final reading an ordinance to rezone an area located along the east side of Cason Lane to residential multifamily 16 RM16 district.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Gilly, Mr. Young, thank you. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. At this time, we'll consider recommendations of the Planning Commission to schedule public hearings to consider rezoning along Salem Highway and St. Andrews Drive to RS12, RM16, and Commercial Fringe. Annexation petition along Salem Highway and Veterans Parkway, and sign ordinance amendment regarding a display of temporary flag signs. Also, we'll consider recommendations of the Planning Director to reschedule a public hearing previously set for October the 10th, 2013, and move to November 7th, 2013, to consider amending the planned residential development PRD district located along Veterans Parkway. Mr. Elam, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Reagan, Mr. Council. During its regular meeting on October 2nd, the Planning Commission conducted public hearings on the matters listed below, and that would be the zone application for the property along Salem Highway and St. Andrews, the annexation petition for the property along Salem Highway and Veterans Parkway, and the sign ordinance amendments. They recommended those for approval, and you need to schedule a public hearing.
All right.
Cover the other item in just a moment.
Ms. McGannon?
November 21st, Mayor.
November 21st. Council members, does that meet with your agreement?
Move we set a public hearing November 21st.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilly. A motion and second. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye.
On the other item, the City Council was scheduled to conduct a meeting on October the 10th. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, the council was unable to meet. The item that was scheduled for a public hearing, which is a zone application for property along Veterans Parkway, was postponed. We, in order to keep this moving forward and knowing that we would have a council meeting on November the 7th, we would like to go ahead and schedule a public hearing on this item for that date, November 7th.
All right, council members, if that meets with your approval, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Young, Mr. Gilly, please call the roll. Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye.
Thank you.
Were you aware, Ms. McGannon, that the 21st was your birthday when you set that public hearing, so we could all be here to celebrate and make that a happy day, an occasion for you?
Well, Mayor, I won't be as happy as if I would be here, but I will be absent on the 21st.
Is there a motion to reconsider?
Ms. McGannon, what other days would be available for this public hearing?
Okay. Well, I guess we've been one up then, haven't we?
And I was bringing balloons and confetti.
I know. We'll just have to do it at another time.
And there's always another
Maybe at a mystery time, which is not so well prepared. All right, we'll consider recommendations now of the Murfreesboro Airport Commission to approve a Tennessee Aeronautics Division grant for the runway extension project, approve an Aeronautics Division grant for the road relocation project, and consider for adoption a resolution expressing official intent that certain expenditures to be incurred in connection with certain public works projects for the City of Murfreesboro Airport, including a runway extension, airfield pavement overlay, and road relocation, be reimbursed from proceeds of notes, bonds, or other indebtedness to be issued or incurred by the City of Murfreesboro. Mr. Gerke, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. There are three items, as you've described, before you tonight. The first one is to approve the Tennessee Aeronautics Division grant for the runway extension. The total amount of the grant is $2,967,800. This is 95% funded through the state of Tennessee, and will take care of the runway extension and various other projects which will address taxiway enhancements, enhancements to our light system, and taxiways as well. This is a project that we expect will occur next year.
All right. You have this approval of this grant before you. Are there any questions, Mr. Gerke?
Obviously, you want separate motions from. Move we accept the recommendations of the airport chairman, item A.
Second.
All right, a motion and second. Mr. Young, Mr. McFarland, thank you. Please call the roll. Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye.
The second item deals with a road relocation. This is the road that connects Airport Road coming into the airport, also to connecting it to McKnight Park and to the MTSU Aerospace Airport campus. By straightening out this road, it will give us some future expansion possibilities around the ramp for future hangars. This will help us delay in some movement onto the old soccer fields, onto McKnight Park, by opening up this area. And Middle Tennessee State University has already come to the Airport Commission requesting some that they are looking for a location for a new simulator hangar, which would go in this area. So to prepare for that, while we have heavy equipment on the airport at this time, we've asked that this road relocation occur at this time. This was on the airport layout plan. The state will assist us at 50% at this one and grant us $119,350 for this improvement to the airport.
All right, questions for Mr. Gerke regarding this recommendation?
Mr. Gerke, will you still be able to go in the main airport and then swing back around and through and come out on DeJarnett?
Yes, that's important, especially when we're talking about spring fling and things like that. We need that continued flow of traffic on either side of McKnight Park. And it is also important for Parks and Recreation to be able to use Airport Road because it does have a signal.
Do you really want to take out those two 90-degree turns?
We would. The less turning, the better.
And I might add, Mr. Goodwin is working on a master plan for McKnight and Starplex as we begin to look to do some upgrades at that park. We're really stepping back and looking to see how traffic is flowing and how the facilities are being used. So that will be an item coming to you down the road a little bit.
Thank you.
All right, you have this recommendation. Are there any other questions, Mr. Gerke? If not, is there a motion?
Move we recommend item B.
All right.
Move for approval of item B.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilly. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland? Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye.
The last item is the refund resolution 13-R-29, and the Airport Commission recommends that you approve that. That assists us with all the intricate financing regulations and rules that we have to follow when dealing with all these grants and the TML loan.
All right. Any questions regarding this refunding resolution? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Second.
And Mr. Gilly. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Aye. This time, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gerke. We'll consider recommendations of the Information Technology Director with regards to approval of consulting services from Weston Consulting Incorporated to aid in the selection of financial, human resources, and court package information system solutions. Mr. Lilly, welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the City Council. This is the request of the IT Department for the Council to approve the consulting services contract from Weston to aid in the selection of a financial, human resources, and a municipal court package information system solution. We have worked with Weston in identifying all technology-based business needs within the city to form the citywide IT strategic master plan. Our strategic plan documents our technical priorities for the next 5 years. First priority identified is to replace our financial, human resources, and our court systems package. Careful identification of all current business needs, processes, and requirements are vital in selecting the best technical solution for each one of these foundations. The IT Department recommends the City Council approve the contract and the task order number 1 attached in your packets with Weston Engineering to assist in the City of Murfreesboro in the selection of these new software requirements. IT Department has already budgeted $98,000 in this fiscal year's budget for consulting fees for the financial solution. Being that these are often interoperable in the back end with these three, the financial and human resources and court, what we'd like to request is that we bundle the consulting services for those, and the additional cost for that would be an additional $28,000. We would fund that out of cost savings in the IT departmental budget and or unforeseen expenses. I open for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Lilly regarding this proposal?
I'm afraid to ask him how old these present packages are that we have now.
Yeah. Well, they all are run by COBOL, which is 1959.
But the programs were bought in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, okay. So is it possible we got our money's worth out of them?
I believe we did.
Did you do some kind of selection process to choose Weston?
Selection process was done through Water and Sewer initially to choose Weston, and they have helped us to select the CIS system that we are rolling out next year. They've also helped out with other task orders. With helping with the IT Strategic Master Plan, they were able to help us get all the business needs with all departments throughout the city. So it's kind of fell in order to consider them as a candidate for these consultant services for finance and the rest of them, human resources and court.
When Weston was originally selected, it was a competitive process, led by Water and Sewer. We looked at a number of firms. They were selected as the most qualified firm. They've been fantastic to work with. One of the things we've really liked about Weston's approach is they're sitting down with our frontline employees and asking them, what is it that you need out of your job? What would make it easier? And so they've really done a good job understanding, the work done by our employees, and then being able to go out to the 30,000-foot level and help us plan a strategy. So they've been fantastic to work with.
Do we feel like we can manage it to where we don't have to get into unforeseen on our?
The 28.
What's actually $18,000 difference on the budget. So we will work hard to squeeze it out of there. We traditionally delivered to you a general fund that comes under budget, so we think we can handle this. And frankly, some of the ways that they can help us in the selection of the software can save us some money too.
I noticed they're located in Rancho Cordova, California. You might suggest that we've got some property that they could move to a less expensive location and a low tax rate and provide their services more centrally located to the United States.
We have 2 25-acre sites.
Absolutely. I think we could help their campus needs out and their employees' revenue streams. So please make that mention to them. All right, council members, are there any other questions regarding this recommendation of our IT director?
If not, I move that we accept Mr. Lilly's recommendation.
So,
Thank you, Mrs. Harris and Mr. Washington. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Mayor Bragg.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Lilly, and please keep going. You've got a long way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yes.
At this time, we'll hear from the director of our city schools regarding the city schools technology plan. Dr. Gilbert, we welcome you, as always.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here again. I want to thank you all for allowing me to come before you to share additional information about the technology plan. As I discussed with you previously, there are 3 basic reasons for the plan that we have presented. First and always is the instructional needs of our children and also today's classroom. The second is an online writing assessment that we will experience the first week in February. The third is online achievement tests for the 14-15 school year. The plan that was presented to you, both in the number of devices, the allocations per grade level, and the kind of devices will allow our schools to meet those 3 needs. In the early 1990s, this district began a plan to put 5 computers into each classroom. That was 23 years ago, And at that time, most of us identified mice as tiny creatures with whiskers and long tails. Clouds were simply to produce rain, and megabytes were found at the Holiday Inn Easter Buffet, which, by the way, was one of the very few restaurants here in town at that time. There was no 840, no Medical Center Parkway, no Joe B. Jackson Boulevard, no Veterans Parkway, no greenways, no bike lanes, and I think we may have had 2 interstate exits. I'm not sure about that, but we didn't have as many as we have now. Today, in 2013, the tools our children need to access learning are different than they were in 1990, as different as the ways our citizens need to access Murfreesboro. Currently, 90% of our computers are EMACs purchased in 2006, 10% are iMacs purchased in 2007. None of those machines will handle the online writing tests that are coming in a few months. None will run the new versions of instructional software, and none is worth the cost to repair. That is why I presented the technology plan with its associated number of computers. Yes, in the tested grade levels, I have requested 2 more computers per 3rd grade classroom and 3 more computers in each 4th through 6th grade classroom than what the state says we need for the logistics of testing. But while the state only has to look at the recommended number of devices that have to be in a building to merely satisfy the logistics for taking the test, you and I have to look at what is truly needed in our district to help our teachers and our students be successful on those tests. I don't have to remind any educator in this state, or any official, or any parent, or unfortunately, any child, about how important those tests are. The accountability of students and the reputation of teachers and school districts rest on how well our students perform on those tests. And the numbers I have given you are what we need if we want to assure that teachers have the tools they need and students have the devices they need to truly measure knowledge of content instead of knowledge of keystrokes. To have a computer for every 2 children enables teachers to truly be able to use technology as a tool for instruction on a daily basis and to prepare for state mandates. To have to go to 3 or 4 other classrooms to pull in enough computers to give students the exposure they need and to truly use technology as a tool for learning just is not feasible in terms of time or logistics for learning or assessment. With teachers teaching reading and math at the same time within grade levels, the need for the computers hits at the same time. And to put 5 children on computers for a period of time away from the rest of the class creates a gap in student learning. I understand that the technology plan I presented impacts the budgets, but I also realize that we have a responsibility to our children to give them the tools they need to succeed. Tonight we have principals with us. We also have assistant principals and teachers with us if you have any questions. But at this time, I'd like to introduce Sarah Catalano, who is a 2nd grade teacher at Northfield, and I would like for her to come to the podium because I think it's really important for you to see what technology can do. Following that, I'd like for Emily Spencer to come. She is the principal of Irma Siegel Elementary School because I think she can speak to the needs that we have in our schools because she sees them on a daily basis.
Welcome, Ms. Catalano.
Thank you. Oh, no. Got a little presentation for you guys. I'm going to take you through what I'm going to take you through what we currently have. This is what it currently looks like in the classroom. Like Dr. Gilbert said, there's supposed to be 5 computers per classroom. Some of them only have 3. Here's another example where you see the teacher using the computer, but the students do not have access, mobile access to the technology. Our current technology is 7 to 8 years old, and it doesn't run the things that we need. Our future plan in grades K through 1 includes iPads for a 2-to-1 ratio. You can see here a teacher working in small group with the child, giving them access to technology. Here they're making words You can also see her using it in a small group with direct instruction, and all the children have access to the technology in their hands. With having a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 classes can pull together, and every child can have an iPad in their hand and have access to the technology that they're going to need in the future. Now for grades 2 through 6, a 2-to-1 for student laptops. This gets it more mobile, the technology in their hands. They can do project-based assignments where they can even pick their laptops up and go present to the class, getting the technology more mobile, unlike what we have right now. And once again, 2 teachers can pull together and all students can have access to a laptop on their desk at the same time. Park is coming. This is what TCAP looks like right now. But students need to have the technology skills needed for Park. And if you'll see after this question right here, you'll see what Park is going to look like. And they're going to need the skills to be able to drag and drop. Here they're putting fractions in order on a number line. And students need technology skills in order to be able to do this and be successful. Testing is not multiple choice anymore, and they're going to need more than just math skills to be able to be successful. Here they're having to drag to make the fractions and show equivalent fractions, which I think that's a pretty fun way to test. They're having to make 1/2 and 3/6 here.
And explain.
Yes. And then after this, there's different parts. That first one was part A, and then they go through and it gets harder and harder. In part E, they have to explain, which they're going to have to be able to type. So they're going to need typing skills and computer skills to be able to be successful on these tests. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Sarah from a teacher's perspective?
Would you teach keyboarding at the same time with all this?
Yes, I would.
That's just integrated into it?
Yes, I would hope that the lower grades would teach the keyboarding skills. That way when they get up to the upper grades, they don't have to worry about that as much. But having that technology there in grades K through 2 will help us be able to teach those keyboarding skills.
I think most of us took typing in high school. Is it fair to say that the second graders will be taking typing now?
I mean, my second graders love the typing programs that are online and putting their hands on those home keys. They literally sit in the computer lab and put their hands on the home keys. It's pretty neat.
I'm out.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Catalano.
Emily, would you come up from the principal's perspective? One of the reasons we want the laptops in second grade is because we know that the testing, we already know the testing next year will be third grade up. We fully expect that to come down. Last year they were looking at, in pre-K, at possibility of doing some online testing, which I do not understand at all, but nevertheless.
Welcome, Ms. Spencer.
Yes, well, seeing our children on the computers is a hard act to follow. But as you can see, the assessments that they're going to have to take, we don't have any doubt in Murfreesboro City Schools that they'll be able to do the assessment. They just need the tools to be able to learn how to show what they know. And so that's honestly one reason that we need them, but I think I'd like to echo what Dr. Gilbert said. They need them for their education. That's where we are right now. That's where we're going in the future. And the children need these computers. They truly do. Mr. McFarland came over to Siegel today, and we sat down and had a short, very pleasant conversation. And I'd like to share with you what he said to me. He looked at me and he said, "Do you need the computers in your school?" And I said, "Absolutely, I do." And he said, "That's what we needed to know." And so that's what I want to tell you tonight. Do we need them? Absolutely. Did the children deserve them? Yes. They are the best investment that we will ever make in Murfreesboro, and we have the best kids in the state. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from Ms. Spencer? What grade do you teach?
I'm the principal at Miss Siegel, but I teach K through 6.
What grade did you teach?
I taught kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, and 4th.
Great. All right, any other questions before I embarrass myself anymore?
You know, I consider myself a teacher every day, so Mayor Bragg, you did not offend me.
Thank you.
Being a liaison to the school system from the council, listening to all those presentations about technology, and I was a little bit bumfuzzled about the cost. But if we're going to invest in our kids and give them the tools the best they can be, then we need to be in the forefront. I was convinced that that's what we need to do. And that's it.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I have to always go back to, especially with education now, my mom's and my dad's favorite saying was, it's all about the children.
That's right.
And I like this approach. I understand that we are the 42nd state to adopt this program. And looking at a comparison that the email we received, just a question, because I know when we're dealing with children, I think Discovery School is the only school right now that every child has a computer. Is that correct?
They do in 4th through 6th grade.
Okay. And in this proposal, I guess coming from my insurance background, in your price, is this including insurance, and does this insurance cover the keyboard drop-in, breakage, and spillage?
Yes, and
Okay.
if you don't mind, Ms. Harris, I'm going to let Dan Bosheras, and also Chris Lilly worked on this proposal, so for the technical things, if you two would come up. When we originally started looking at what we wanted, we were an Apple platform. One of the reasons for going to Dell was because of the lesser expense, but also because the insurance. I'm going to let you address that, Dan.
Yes, ma'am. With the Dell proposal, excuse me, that just includes anything. If you drop it, break it, spill water in it, which we know in a classroom that happens very often. So that's one of the things that's included in the Dell proposal. There is basically a full-blown run over it with a truck, which I hope they're not driving, warranty.
Is that a 1 year? What's the time?
No, sir, it's for 3 years.
3 years?
Yes, sir.
On each machine?
Yes, sir.
So if you go a year and you break it, do you get a new 3 years, or it's just a 3 year period?
It's a 3 years from the date of
for
purchase.
For the whole
Yes,
thing?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I defer to them for all
All right.
that stuff. I know what we need for instruction, and I know what I have to have for testing, but the specifics of all of that other, I really defer to them.
Okay, and I always like to, when our citizens send letters to the council, I always like to address that. And I know Mr. Raintree did send us all an email, and he was making a comparison to what we are proposing and what he's proposing, and doing a little research, and I could be very wrong on this, but according to my research, I know he mentioned a Kindle HD, and in my research, according to what we need, the Kindle HD is not in compliance with what we need. And also he mentioned the Samsung Tab 310, and it does not meet all of the requirements. Plus, in that particular laptop, it doesn't have the keyboard. And I noticed in his calculations, he came up with a proposal of $3,450,478, where we did $5,206,725. And again, that did not include, in my research, our insurance. And also, leading up to that, I would like to ask, the laptops that we are proposing to get, which is coming from Dell, do we have the assurance that it'll be functional for 4 years?
Mr. Lilly?
From the laptop that we're getting, it not only meets the requirements, it exceeds the requirements. On the first page of the park requirements, it does say that it has a disclaimer about the minimum requirements, and it would be good for the 2014-2015 year, but it does not guarantee that those requirements will be good for the next year. But it does talk about computers that exceed, and we want to look at computers that will last. We don't want to keep coming back year after year asking for, we need to replace these because they're obsolete. So yes, those computers will last us the full term of the 3 to 4 years life cycle. The Samsung Galaxies, I cannot confirm that they'll last that long because the vendor that creates the Android OS does not regulate the hardware. The hardware doesn't regulate the OS. And that's not similar to the Apples, but there could possibly be an upgrade that is not supported by the Samsung. So I can't confirm those would last the life or the 3 to 4 years lifespan.
One of the other things that Mr. Bashir has brought to me this afternoon has to do, and I don't even know how to describe it, but it has to do with directory access. So would you please let the council know?
One of the problems we have with children is we try to protect them as a technology department, network-wise. Though we don't like to talk about it, we try to do everything we can to keep them from being connected from anyone outside. One of the things you run into with a Android OS is you're not able to govern it with an Active Directory binding. Basically, all these laptops that we're talking about with the Dell will bind to an Active Directory server that will basically monitor it. If the laptop was taken out of the district, it will still have to go back through the Active Directory server in order to go out to the Internet. So what does that do? If the laptops are ever taken home, the child gets on the Internet, we still are trying to protect them somewhat at home. That's what we're trying to do. With the Android OS, we're not unable to do that. There's also you were speaking of the Kindles, ma'am, the WhisperNet. The WhisperNet is not able to be turned off on those units at an admin level. So we open up the other thing of, can we protect our children? And one of the things we're given to as a technology department is to make the kids secure, make the network secure. And that's where I really have some problems with some of those.
What it would basically mean, the way that Dan described it, it would basically, the infrastructure we have in place, we would have to redo all of that infrastructure. The other thing about the proposal is there were not enough of the and I actually figured it out, how many we would be lacking. The state recommends 1540 in the tested grade levels, and there were 960 listed there, so we're not really comparing, and there's no pun intended, apples to apples. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm sorry.
Well, you all have done an excellent job, and in the research I've done, I just wanted to make sure as council members that we do address our taxpayers when they come to us, and I did want to make that comparison. And here again, I think you all did a fabulous job, and that's just something that we just need to be very proactive, because we don't want testing time to come and we don't even have our children ready to use the keyboards.
Right.
So
thank you.
You've done a great job.
Mr. Gilly?
Dan, what you were referring to is basically sort of the modern-day version of the V-chip, what the V-chip was for the TV a generation ago.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McFarland.
Mayor, had a really good conversation today and learned quite a bit. And I'm going to ask you some questions I already know the answer to, but I think the other council members would appreciate that. We all deal with things that come from above where we're told, well, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Are you in a pretty fluid, moving environment when you're talking about testing and all of those different things?
I am, and I really think I was in a more fluid environment a month ago than I am now. And the reason I say that is because after checking with SCORE and the State Department, I can tell you that right now, for sure, the writing assessment will be online in February, the first week in February, starting the 4th. We'll have 2 weeks of 4th grade, and then we'll do 5th and 6th, and then two weeks of 5th grade, and then we'll do 3rd and 6th and come back. So in talking with the State Department, that is definitely happening. The other thing that is definitely planned is still to move the TCAP to the park testing, which will be next year in 14-15. One of the reasons I think the state will stay committed to that is because we are a governing state of the park, which is an assessment of Common Core. So I did talk with David Mansouri at SCORE, and he said there was no indication that we would move away from that. Something could change tomorrow. I think Emily shared with you what she didn't know is we were supposed to actually get report cards. We were told we would have them today, and then got a note yesterday that that's going to be delayed. So I can't promise you that testing is going to happen online, but I can tell you that there's no movement away from that right now at all.
And something I learned today, council members, and it was just sort of eye-opening, that, and I think Emily talked about this, that they'll get an email that says, hey, you need to do this, this, and this, and that email would be, you need to do this in 2 weeks, and then that changes maybe 2 weeks later. So they're living in a very fluid environment where things don't always stay set on what's happening. So that's the part that I really, from what I came away with, that, I had a law professor in property that would always say his question would be, or answer would be maybe yes and maybe no. Right. So that's the part that, you just don't know. So that's the part that I really came across today, seeing that, maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah. We started looking. I came on board in January 2010, and we started looking at that time when I found out the condition of the computers, really at what we should be doing. We received, I think in the fall that year is when Race to the Top came about, and we learned that we would probably move to online testing. So we really stopped. At that point, I was ready to recommend iPads. I'm glad I didn't, because they will not work. There has to be a keyboard there and screen. So then we thought we would hear, we were told that we would hear September of 2011 what we would need as far as the testing requirements. We didn't hear that at that time, and then we thought we would hear it in September 2012, because that's superintendent's conference, always happens in September. So we finally, in spring of 13, by that time we were already beginning to look at what we might be able to use. And then when the requirements came out, as Mr. Lilly said, we really looked at what we were sure would work, and at the same time, again, are we going to do testing online? Yes, that's what we're expecting. But the bigger picture, as I've said, is really the instruction for the children that we need.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Smotherman.
Dr. Gilbert, I think we've had a couple conversations through email in the last few days, and I toured Mitchell Nelson Tuesday and then John Pittard on Wednesday, and I can't tell you how impressed I was with not only the principals, the assistant principals, the teachers, and especially the students. Just absolutely the most organized, well-oiled machine you could possibly see operate. The one thing that we did have a conversation with at the Pittard School was, I guess they have the monitors that I think we saw one in the video where they were projecting what was on their laptop up onto the monitor. And apparently at some point maybe we had used pull-down screens or something with projectors in the past. I think they were saying that if we are getting ready to order anything for Overall Creek, that we may need to go back to the pull-down screens. And the reason being is it's just so much larger. Mm-hmm. And they gave an example a couple times of where they were trying to project something that was printed up onto the screen, and it was just so difficult to read it when it was on the monitor itself versus the screen. So just for future technology use, I think that's the only thing that I saw that they seem to have concern with as far as our technology needs and what was going on and the application of what we're using. Certainly at Mitchell Nelson, I think the average classroom may have had 4 computers and maybe 3 functioned. At Pittard, because the equipment was a little bit newer equipment, certainly it was somewhat more online and somewhat more available, but it was still completely inadequate for what they needed in order to be able to carry out the daily requirements within the classroom. So I compliment you very much on the schools and what I saw on the tours, and certainly encourage everyone, if you get a chance, to drop in, because I was completely by surprise when I dropped in. They weren't expecting me, and they absolutely bent over backwards for me, and it's an impressive operation to see when it's functioning.
Mayor, may I do something since he's mentioned that? I'd like for all the Murfreesboro City Schools family to stand, if you're here, please. The reason I want to do that is because I don't get this opportunity very often. This group has done an unbelievable job. I'm not an easy person to work with at all, to say the least. I'm pretty honest. They're pretty honest with me. I expect them to be that way. But I can't tell you how nice it is when within this last month we've had Clarksville call and want to come see us. We've had Franklin Special come see us. They're coming back again. We've had Coffee County that's come. We've had, who else? Tullahoma City that's come in, all within the last month. We have, I know Robin was requested to present at the LEAD conference, which is the premier conference for administrators in 2 weeks. I know Carissa's presenting, Siobhan's presenting. All these presentations have been requested. The Shanghai partnership that we're doing, it was requested that we participate in that. So I can't tell you what an amazing group I get the privilege to work with every single day, because they care about children. The reason I wanted them to stand is because we could do none of this, if it weren't for the support of our school board, and we have some representatives here, but as important of our council, because we are well aware that when we come to you, although you know we don't come to you very often, when we do, you're there, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and you're exactly right. These folks are absolutely remarkable, and we are building the best school district in the state, and anyone from the state level down will tell you that, because that's why they come to us. So it's really a remarkable group, and I want to thank you for what you do for us. So thank you for letting me have that privilege to say that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions of Dr. Gilbert? We certainly are pleased and proud with our city system, and we are blessed, and we are proud to be able to have the ability to provide these types of resources. I've often said there's never the last dollar that an educator will ask you for to spend for our children. But in this way, I believe we really are making a step forward that will make a huge difference. Again, there's no quantifiable way to determine what effect it'll have on the future, but I certainly believe that if we don't take these steps, we will not prepare our students as well as we could for the future. And that means economically, for our families, for our community, and for those places that the people that we train go. I often wonder sometimes in years gone by how well we prepared our students and how well the county system accepted them when they walked out of the city schools into the county schools, and how well we would be prepared. And I have no doubt in my mind now that our students are going to be well prepared and hopefully be exceptional students when they step into the county schools or whatever county school they may find themselves in the future, whether in this county or another county in another state. So I really appreciate your hard work, Mr. Boshears and Mr. Lilly, in trying to drag us kicking and screaming into the 21st century. It's been 13 long years now we've labored in this 21st century, and we've got probably 977 more years in this century. It just takes a long time to make sure that we get everything right. So I'm sure on behalf of the council that you appreciate these efforts. And I'm sure there'll be some other questions, but we certainly depend on our teachers, our administrators, our staff people to get down in the weeds and help us make those decisions. We're pretty generalists up here. We got to worry with fire departments and police departments and schools and lots of things. So it's very nice to have a competent group of people to deal with down at the front line in the weeds. So I appreciate what you do, and all our educators. I'm really, really very proud of you and your willingness to stay in the profession, because it seems like in many ways we don't get finished with the last initiative before we got piled on with the next initiative. So my congratulations to you, and very proud of you, and I'm sure this council is too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Anything else from the council regarding this?
Mayor, I just want to say, I can attest, you're absolutely right about how well our city schools prepare our children for the transition. My 11-year-old transitioned out of the city schools just this year, this current school year, into Central Magnet, and she could not have been better prepared than what she was given through the city school system.
Great.
And it took us a while kicking and screaming to get the iPads.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
You know,
You're exactly right.
Now Miss Machoda mastered all of it.
And the real plus, I think, of what we're doing right now as far as training the kids on Windows software as opposed to the Macintosh, we're preparing them for high school, because high school does have, the county does have the Windows operation. So I think we're even better preparing them, even if we'd had the equipment before, because at least they're prepared on familiar equipment. So it's a real plus.
And my wife, Phyllis, really appreciates that, really. Phyllis is coordinator of secondary curriculum for the county schools. As you know, Phyllis is my wife, and so she kind of educates me and tells me a few things. And Linda, Dr. Gilbert, and your staff, she appreciates that.
And in the background are the teachers who go that extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
And so much is put on them. My sister's a teacher, and just so much is put on them, and I want to commend them also for the fabulous job they do.
You're right.
And the principals.
It's always changing.
All right. Anything else? All right, then, let's go to the more mundane, the beer permits. Ms. Wright.
Mayor, we have a tavern that wants to open at 1206 Robert Rose Drive. This is a new location, and they have met our background requirements. We're waiting for them to complete codes, and would like to issue the permit once they do.
All right, is there a motion to accept this beer permit?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. Second?
Second the motion.
Mr. Gilly, thank you. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
Hi. This time you have the statements to be considered for payment. Are there any questions regarding those bills as they are presented? And if not, is there a motion to pay the bills?
Move that we pay the bills.
Second.
Mr. McFarland, Mr. Young, thank you. Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Mayor Bragg?
I have no board and commission appointments. Is there any other business from the staff or the council to come before the council at this time? I think most of you know that I have decided to retire again and will not be a candidate for re-election to the position of the mayor of the city I love dearly. And I want to tell you all how much I appreciate serving with you, how much I appreciate our city employees for making me look good every time somebody calls and somebody asks. And I know all the council members feel that way about our city employees, and certainly we have to be a salesperson not only for our residents and our business owners, but for our city employees, because they're the frontline people who deal with our residents and business owners every day. So I appreciate this opportunity. It has been a wonderful 11 and a half years. You're not rid of me yet. I've got 6 more months to go until April 30th, and a new mayor will be sworn in on May the 1st, and we'll have a ceremony out in the rotunda. But I thank everyone for the way you have treated my family and me, and I appreciate being here and in this position, and thank you.
Amen.
Thank you for your service, Mayor. We'll put up with you 6 more months.
Okay. Thank you. I'll crack a joke or two every once in a while, try to raise the comedy level. Is there anything else to come before the council at this time? If not, you're adjourned.